Y'all, if you are watching this, it's your boy, Mr. Roche. I am gone today because I'm at a doctor's appointment. I will be at school pretty much all day except for your class period. So sorry that I'm missing it. It's just unlucky timing here. But I've got a video notes for you today. Fairly short lesson. Make sure you're respectful to whoever is subbing for me. Make sure you're respectful to each other. Be productive, and you should walk out of here with no homework. I also have in my sub notes that if you are well behaved and you're not too loud, that you can play 99, the card game, as long as you're done with all your homework first and you've got nothing else to work on. So we are starting a new unit today. Unit 7 is about ratios and proportions. Like I said, quick lesson. If you are at this point, you should have already taken the warm-up quiz. The warm-up quiz is about fractions. It is just a quick recap of something that you already know that will help you with this new thing. Ratios can be used in recipes, and that is what our daily problem is today. So another quick warm-up for you. Mr. Roche has company over, and everybody wants some pancakes. Who doesn't like pancakes? My recipe is enough for 6 people, but I've got 18 people coming over that are going to be eating. Here is my actual recipe. I do love making homemade pancakes. That is pretty darn close to the recipe I actually use. My grandpa Red is the one who taught me. Modify the recipe so I can feed everybody. You write down the new recipe, the new amounts. Write down the new amounts, pause the video here really quick, and then we will talk about it. So hopefully you've seen that if I start with 6 people and I end with 18, that I need to triple my recipe. I need everything to be 3 times as much. So it's gonna be the same pancake, I just have more batter. That's the thing about ratios and proportions, is we don't want to change the recipe, we just want more, or sometimes we might want less. Like if it was just my wife and I eating, then I would only cook for 2 people and I might cut down the recipe, which is actually what I do. I cut it in half for my wife and I. So if you are going to have more people, instead of having 6 eggs, we're going to have 18 eggs. We're going to do 3 times as much because I got 3 times as many people. You would have 3 quarts of buttermilk. This is a good opportunity to practice multiplying fractions because I'd have 1/4 tablespoon of baking powder normally, and I'm going to multiply that by 3, would give me now 3/4 a tablespoon. I would have 6 tablespoons of sugar. Seems like a lot, actually. I would have 3 pinches of salt, and then a reminder when you're multiplying fractions, no mixed numbers. We got to change this guy to an improper fraction first and then multiply that by 3. So I'd have 21 halves, which would be roughly 10 1/2 cups of flour. Now, to be honest with you, I add flour until it's a consistency that I like. I don't actually really measure it out, but hey, neither here nor there. So one thing that I would emphasize if I was here today is with all of these new numbers, if I put this and I mix it all up, my pancakes aren't going to be any different. It's still the same recipe, still the same ratio of ingredients, it's just 3 times bigger, and that's kind of what we're looking at today. Trivia question today, you can pause once again and see if you can get the answer for it. But the trivia question today is, in 2016, the Summer Olympics were held in what country? That country is Brazil. The 2016 Olympics were in Rio de Janeiro. So there you have it, the Rio Olympics. Goals today: being able to evaluate and compare using ratios, being able to set up and verify proportions. We'll talk about both of those things here briefly, and then we'll get you off to some work time. You should have this in your notes, but just a reminder of our last week of quarter 2 coming up. Your deadline for that inequalities test would be this Friday to get it done, and I should be around this Friday. All right, let's get after it. We spent a little bit of time talking about this before your Unit 6 test last week. What are ratios? What do you remember about last week? When do we use ratios? What are some ratios that you know of? Important to remember that a ratio is a fraction. We did a rational number unit, and that was problems like this, where I had to add fractions or multiply fractions or turn them into decimals or whatever. But a ratio is a fraction, and we can write them in a few different ways. You could also write, like, there are one person wearing green for every 3 people that are wearing blue. You could also write it with that word 2. You could also write it with 2 dots. But most commonly, we write them as fractions. Things that you might see with ratios, like going to Cub and having a 2 for 5 deal. My pancake recipe that I just showed you, miles per hour is a ratio of miles to hours. How far are you going in a certain amount of time? That's kind of an interesting ratio. In sports, we typically use win-loss ratios. Go Wolves on top. Pi is a ratio, which is kind of cool. Pi is a ratio of the circle's circumference to the diameter. So we use it all the time. The biggest thing that you need to know is we're comparing 2 different items. Ratios are comparing 2 different items. And again, there's a few different ways we can do it, but most often we do with division or a fraction. Ratios that make the same comparison, kind of like my recipe, where, okay, well, I could do 6 eggs, and then if I beef it up by 3, I'd have 18 eggs. It's the same ratio of eggs, it's just 3 times more. The ratios that make the same comparison are called equivalent ratios. So it might be split into more sections, but it's still the same percentage of blue filled in. So here's your first example. I would ask you to pause and see if you can do it. See if you can find equivalent ratios. This is exactly what you did in your warm-up, so hopefully you've already done a little bit of this today. But see if you can find equivalent ratios, aka rewrite the fraction in 3 different ways. Hopefully you've paused if you haven't paused and at least tried it, because there's no penalty for wrong answers. Pause it right now and try it. Or I can give you this one to get started. Ratios can be beefed up. I have more people coming over, so I might make this fraction bigger by multiplying it by 2. Or maybe it's just you and a friend eating pancakes and you want to whittle it down. And you might divide. Doesn't really matter. My favorite to multiply by is 10, because then you just, add a 0. And we would say all of these ratios are equivalent. They're the same ratio, just one's bigger and one's smaller. So here's one more to try. I tried to make this one tricky so you couldn't just, like divide by 2 or whatever. But maybe you could multiply by 2. That would be pretty easy. Right? That would be equivalent ratios. Again, you can multiply by 10 is a really easy one. But 510 over 360 is equivalent to 1 over 2 over 72. It's the same ratio, just written a little bit different. Now, this is kind of where we end. We're getting pretty close to the end already. But a proportion, and I would write this down in your notes, a proportion is an equation, so a little bit more specific, that states that 2 ratios are equivalent. So rather than you having to come up with those ratios out of thin air, rather than you just like magically producing more ratios, we might give you some and say, hey, are these actually equivalent? Sometimes we'll do it with the word and. Sometimes you'll see it written like this with like a question mark and an equal sign. And I just want to know, are these things actually equal to each other? Is 9/36 the same as 2/8? And you have a couple of different options. Most commonly, students really like to use cross multiplying, aka the butterfly method. So let me draw you a beautiful picture of a butterfly. I'm going to name him Mike or Jerry. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Whatever you want to name your butterfly. And I'm going to go numerator times denominator. 9 times 8 is 72. And I'm going to go numerator times denominator. 36 times 2 is 72. We set the two wings equal to each other. And if that is the case, bam, you would say that these two ratios are equivalent. Now, the second thing that I skipped down here, this little line, the other way to check rather than the butterfly method is to write them in simplest form. So you don't have to butterfly. If I'm looking at this one, I don't really want to do 12 times 16. That doesn't really sound that fun. You could, but sounds like a lot of work. So my other option is to rewrite these fractions in most simplified form. For example, if I just focus on this guy, I could divide both of these by 3, and I would have 3/4. And now when I simplify this guy, I also want to see it come out as 3/4. If it's not 3/4, then they're not equivalent. If it is 3/4, then I'm good to go. So I'm seeing that, hey, 18 and 24, those are both divisible by 4. And I've got 4/6. And I go, oh, hey, I could go again, right? Because those are both divisible by 2. And the simplest form of this guy is 2/3. Oof, those are not equivalent. So yes, equivalent. And again, you could simplify both of these and you would get 1/4 and 1/4. That's option A. Option B is to butterfly method and cross multiply. So again, this is just the same page with all of those blanks filled in. Make sure you've got those blanks filled in. A couple of more. This one, you could butterfly. You don't have to. I'm going to butterfly just to butterfly because, you know, drawing a butterfly is fun. This one is going to be named Monica. Hi, Monica the butterfly. I'm going to set the two wings equal to each other. 2 times 19 is 38. That's this green wing. The orange wing, 9 times 12. If I don't know that off the top of my head, I can do a little bit of scratch work. Looks like 108, and holy cow, those wings are not equal to each other. So you would answer, these are not equivalent ratios. That would be my final answer. That's my work proving it. This one might be okay to butterfly, right? Like you could butterfly and multiply these two, but again, I'll remind you, it is possible just to rewrite them in simplest form. If I can get these guys to match, hey, both of these are divisible by 4, and I've got 3/8. Oh, look, 3/8 is equal to 3/8. That's your other option, and you would say, yes, they are equivalent. One more on this page, I would encourage you to try it yourself. You can butterfly method if you want. You can rewrite the fractions if you want, but pause it, see if you get the right answer. You are wondering, are these things actually equal to each other? Hopefully you've paused and you've tried it. The answer is yes, they are equivalent. I don't really want to do 5 times 28, so I'm just going to rewrite them the same way if I can. Both are divisible by 7. 28 divided by 7 is 4. 35 divided by 7 is 5. And look, 4/5 would be equal to 4/5. So my final answer is yes, they are equivalent. Okay, I've got just one more problem here for you. This would be an example of like an application. This would be an example of just like when might you use this in the real world. Again, we like ratios because we compare things. We can take a comparison of like, hey, the average number of pounds of trash recycled by one person in America is typically 1.4 pounds. And Ahmed's family is actually recycling 7.2, but they have more people. So I want to know, are they on pace? Are they doing a little bit more? Like, are they doing better? Should they be recycling more? Are they doing a little bit worse? And that's what this question asks. So on average, each American recycles about 1.4 pounds of trash per day. So each American would be one person, and one person recycles 1.4 pounds per day. To see how this compared to his family, Ahmed started weighing his family's recycling and recorded the results in the table. Now, one mistake that commonly happens, if I'm looking at the table and I'm like, hey, 7.2 and 4, this is a super common mistake, and see if you can spot it. I'll reveal it in a second. What is the issue with this? A really common mistake here, folks, is not lining up people with people and recycling with recycling. So if you look at my green fraction here, 1 on the top is one person, and 1.4 is the amount that they recycle, the pounds. So my other fraction should be 4 people on the top and 7.2 pounds on the bottom. We got to make sure that everything stays nice and aligned. People with people, pounds with pounds. And now you can either cross multiply, you can try to get these to be the same. I'll tell you, this is where we start using calculators in our class. And you can use a calculator on this problem. I've got some extra ones in the back in the closet that you may borrow as long as you're nice to them and put them back at the end of the hour. But I've got 1 times 7.2. That wing is equal to 7.2. I don't need a calculator for that. And then this wing of my butterfly is 4 times 1.4. Just to keep it simple, I am going to use my iPad calculator. We really prefer that you use physical ones because then they'll match what you're doing on the MCA. So I'm going to do 4 times 1.4. But you can boo me for using my iPad calculator just for ease. Is 5.6. So that orange wing is 5.6. And hey, those aren't equal to each other. So it looks like they're maybe recycling a little bit less than the average person. I think it should be 7.6 pounds. So they might put an emphasis on like, hey, we should be recycling more. We should be making sure. But your answer to this question, they are not in proportion because the ratios are not equivalent. And that would be my answer to this. So again, one more time, as you go through the homework today, just make sure that you keep everything aligned. If you're making your two ratios and cross multiplying, make sure people is with people, pounds is with pounds. You could switch them. You could do pounds on the top as long as pounds is on the top for both. That would be totally fine. But just make sure all of your units are aligned. That's what I've got for you. Check out the homework quiz in today's folder. Like I said, please be kind to the sub, be kind to each other. Get this guide done so you're walking out of class today with no homework. And I will see you tomorrow. Peace out.